Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. I remember that day vividly. The way her voice broke the silence between us, as if those words had been waiting on the edge of her tongue for months. "I'm done with our marriage," she said, her tone calm, almost attached. For a moment, I just looked at her, not because I didn't understand what she said, but because I was trying to understand how we got here. The woman standing before me wasn't the same person I married 15 years ago. Back then, her eyes sparkled with warmth, and her laughter could light up an entire room. But the woman in front of me now looked tired, cold, and strangely distant, as if she'd already packed her emotions and moved on long before she packed her bags. I didn't shout, I didn't plead, I didn't even ask why. I just smiled, a small, quiet smile that came not from peace, but from a strange realization. Deep down, I already knew this day was coming. The signs had been there for months, maybe even years, but I had chosen to ignore them, hoping love alone could keep us together. It started subtly. She began spending longer hours at work, claiming new projects and late-night meetings. I believed her because I trusted her. That's what marriage is supposed to be built on, right? Trust. But what I didn't realize was that trust without honesty is like a house built on sand. It looks solid until the first storm hits. The first time I truly felt something was wrong was when I found her laughing over a text message. It wasn't the laughter that bothered me. It was the look in her eyes. That light, that spark, it wasn't meant for me anymore. When I asked who she was talking to, she quickly replied, "Just a friend from work." Her tone was casual, but her eyes gave her away. I brushed it off. I told myself I was being paranoid, insecure, dramatic. Words men often use to silence their instincts. But over time, her friends from work seemed to call more often. She'd step out to take their calls, whispering in another room. Our dinners became silent, our mornings routine, and our nights empty. One night, I came home early from a business trip. I had bought her favorite flowers, lilies, and planned to surprise her with dinner. When I walked into the house, I heard her voice from the living room. It was soft, almost flirtatious. I froze. My heart began to race, not from anger but from fear. The kind of fear that comes when your heart knows something your mind refuses to accept. She was sitting on the couch, smiling down at her phone. I stood there for a moment, watching her, until she noticed me. Her smile vanished instantly, replaced with a nervous one. "Oh, you're home early," she said, trying to sound casual. I held up the flowers. "Yeah, I want to surprise you." But it was me who got surprised that night. Not because I caught her doing something, but because I realized something deeper. I wasn't part of her world anymore. From that day onward, things started changing faster. She stopped asking how my day was, stopped caring if I ate dinner, stopped waiting up for me. Our conversations became limited to bills, chores, and responsibilities. The warmth that once filled our home had turned to a quiet, heavy chill. I tried to talk to her a few times, to ask what went wrong. But every time, she dismissed it. "You're overthinking," she'd say. "Not everything has to be about feelings." But marriage is about feelings. It's built on them. Without that, it's just two people sharing a house, pretending to be a couple. The final sign came when I checked her social media one evening. She had started posting pictures of herself, out with friends, smiling carefree, dressed differently. Her captions read things like, "Finding myself again," and "Happiness is a choice." I wasn't in a single photo. It was as if she was slowly erasing me from her life, one post at a time. So when she stood there that day and said, "I'm done with our marriage," I didn't fight it. I didn't ask her to stay. I just smiled. Because I realized something I should have understood long ago. You can't make someone love you by holding on tighter. She looked at me, surprised. Maybe she expected an argument, tears, or anger, but I had none left. I had already done all that, silently for months, every night when I lay awake next to her, wondering where I lost her. "You're not saying anything?" she asked, her voice slightly trembling. "What do you want me to say?" I replied calmly, "If you're done, then you're done. I can't change that." She blinked, almost confused. I could see the uncertainty flash across her face. Maybe she expected me to fight for her one last time, to beg, to make it harder for her to walk away. But I wasn't going to make it easier or harder. I was just accepting the truth. She sighed. I didn't expect you to just give up so easily. I shook my head slowly. This isn't me giving up. This is me understanding that I've already lost you. There was silence between us. That kind of silence that feels heavy, like 1,000 words left unsaid. She looked around the house, as if realizing for the first time that she was leaving a life behind, not just a man. When she went upstairs to pack, I sat in the living room, the same place we had spent countless nights talking, laughing, and dreaming about the future. I looked around, and everything reminded me of what used to be. The framed pictures, the small decorations she picked, the couch where we once sat together. But those memories no longer felt warm. They felt like ghosts of something that had already died long ago. As I sat there, my phone buzzed. It was a message from a mutual friend, one who had always been honest with me. It simply said, "I think you should know she's been seeing someone from her office. I didn't want to get involved, but you deserve the truth." For a second, I just stared at the message. My heart didn't even race. It just sank. Deep down, I had already known. Every late night, every lie disguised as a meeting, every cold glance, it all added up. When she came downstairs with her suitcase, she looked at me like she was searching for something. Maybe guilt, maybe anger, but I gave her neither. I just stood up and said, "I hope he gives you what I couldn't." She froze, her lips parting slightly. "What do you mean?" I smiled faintly. "You don't have to explain. I already know." Her eyes filled with tears, not because she was caught, but because she knew I was right. She whispered, "I never meant to hurt you." "I know," I said softly, "but you did anyway." She walked out the door without another word. And just like that, 15 years of love, laughter, and shared dreams ended with a quiet click of the door. When the house finally fell silent, I sat there for hours, not crying, not raging, just sitting. The emptiness was deafening. The walls felt wider, the air heavier, but there was also a strange sense of peace. For the first time in a long while, I didn't have to pretend everything was fine. That night, I went to our bedroom, or rather, my bedroom now. Her side of the bed was empty, the sheets untouched. I looked at the space where she used to sleep, and memories came flooding back. Our late-night talks, the way she used to reach for my hand in the dark, the warmth of her laugh. All of it, gone. I lay down and stared at the ceiling, wondering where it all went wrong. Maybe I worked too much. Maybe I didn't say, "I love you" enough. Maybe we both just stopped trying. Love doesn't disappear overnight. It fades, slowly, until one day it's gone, and you don't even remember when it left. But even in that pain, there was a quiet understanding. Sometimes, losing someone isn't the worst thing that can happen. Sometimes, it's the beginning of finding yourself again. I closed my eyes and whispered to the empty room, "I hope you find what you're looking for." And for the first time in months, I slept peacefully. What I didn't know then was that this wasn't the end of our story. Not yet, because people who break trust always believe they can come back when they realize what they've lost. But when she did, when she came back weeks later, filled with regret and tears, she found a man who no longer waited, no longer hoped, and no longer smiled for her. That, however, is a story for another time. Days turned into weeks after she walked out. At first, the silence was unbearable. Every sound in the house reminded me of her. The creak of the floorboard near the kitchen, the smell of her favorite candle still faint in the air, the empty spot at the dinner table. I'd wake up expecting to hear her humming in the bathroom or making coffee, but there was only quiet. It's strange how a place that once felt full of life can suddenly feel so hollow. For years, our home had been filled with laughter, conversation, and warmth. Now it felt like a museum of memories, everything in its place, untouched, frozen in time. At first, I thought I'd fall apart completely, but instead, something inside me started to change. Maybe it was because I had already grieved her long before she left. I realized I had spent the last year of our marriage mourning something that was already gone. Our connection, our love, our partnership. I started to focus on myself again. I went back to the gym, something I had stopped doing, because I was always trying to be home for dinner that never really mattered anymore. I cooked for myself, took evening walks, and reconnected with old friends who I had slowly distanced myself from during my marriage. One evening, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sunset. For the first time in years, I felt a kind of peace I couldn't explain. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was freedom. I wasn't waiting for anyone anymore. I wasn't walking on eggshells or trying to fix something that didn't want to be fixed. A few weeks later, I got a message from an unknown number. The words were simple. "Can we talk?" I didn't need to ask who it was. I knew instantly. I stared at the message for a long time. My first instinct was to ignore it, but curiosity, or maybe closure, made me reply. "About what?" A few minutes later, she responded, "Please, I just want to explain. We agreed to meet at a small cafe we used to go to during our early years together." As I walked in that day, I felt a strange mix of emotions, not anger, not love, but something quieter. Acceptance, maybe. She was already there, sitting by the window, looking nervous. Her hair was slightly shorter now, and there were dark circles under her eyes. She looked tired, not physically, but emotionally worn out. When she saw me, her lips parted in a faint, shaky smile. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," I replied, sitting across from her. There was a long silence before she finally spoke. "You look different." I nodded. "I feel different." She looked down at her coffee, stirring it even though it was already cold. "I don't know where to start," she whispered. "Try the truth," I said calmly. She took a deep breath. "I made a mistake." I stayed silent, watching her carefully. I thought I wanted something else. I thought I was missing out on life, on excitement, on passion. But I wasn't. I was just confused. She paused, her eyes flickering with guilt. "He wasn't what I thought he was." It wasn't love. It was just an escape from what I didn't want to face. Her words hung in the air like smoke, visible, heavy, and hard to breathe through. "I hurt you," she continued, her voice cracking. I lied. I betrayed the man who always stood by me, who loved me even when I stopped deserving it. And I regret that for the rest of my life. I looked at her for a long moment before speaking. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I want to make things right," she said, her voice trembling. "I want to try again. I want us back." There was the words I once begged to hear, but hearing them now didn't feel like victory. It felt empty. I leaned back in my chair, letting out a slow breath. "Do you know what it's like to break every piece of yourself trying to hold on to someone who's already gone?" She looked down, tears streaming down her face. "I know now." I shook my head gently. "No, you don't. You left before the hardest part. You left before the loneliness, before the silence, before the nights when I questioned my worth. You walked away when I still believed there was something left to save." She reached across the table, her hand trembling. "Please, I'll do anything. I've realized what I lost." I looked at her hand, but didn't take it. "You didn't lose me," I said quietly. "You gave me away." Her eyes widened. She opened her mouth to speak, but I spent weeks wondering why you did it. I continued, my voice calm but firm. "Was I not enough? Did I work too much? Did I stop making you feel loved? But the truth is, you didn't cheat because of me. You cheated because something inside you was missing, and you thought someone else could fill that emptiness. But no one can fill a void that you refuse to face." She started sobbing quietly. "I don't expect forgiveness. I miss you. I miss us." I looked out the window, watching cars pass by. "You miss the idea of what we used to be. But that version of us doesn't exist anymore." She wiped her tears, her voice trembling. "You really don't love me anymore?" I hesitated for a moment. "I did," I said softly, "and a part of me probably always will. But love isn't enough anymore. Not after everything." The silence between us stretched until it felt like the world had stopped spinning. I stood up slowly and placed some cash on the table for the coffee I didn't drink. She looked up at me with pleading eyes. "So that's it? After everything we shared, I gave a small, sad smile. After everything you threw away. Her face crumpled, and I could see the realization sinking in, the understanding that she had finally lost me, not because I stopped caring, but because I finally cared about myself more. As I walked out of that cafe, I felt a strange lightness in my chest. Not joy, not revenge, just peace. The kind of peace that comes when you stop trying to reopen a door that's meant to stay closed. Over the next few months, she tried reaching out again. Messages, calls, even showing up at my doorstep once, crying and saying she couldn't live with the guilt. But I had already learned the hardest lesson of my life. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. I forgave her, yes, but not for her sake. For mine, because I didn't want to carry that bitterness anymore. It wasn't about revenge or proving a point. It was about healing. Slowly, my life started to take shape again. I focused on work, started traveling more, and even met new people, not romantically at first, just friends who reminded me that there's still kindness in the world. And one day, while attending a charity event, I met someone new. She was nothing like my ex-wife, calm, grounded, genuine. We talked for hours, and for the first time in years, I felt a spark. Not the kind that burns fast and disappears, but a steady warmth that grows quietly. We started spending more time together, and I found myself laughing again, the kind of laughter that comes from somewhere real. I didn't rush anything. I wanted to make sure I had truly healed before letting anyone in again. Meanwhile, my ex-wife eventually stopped reaching out. Through mutual friends, I heard that her affair ended badly. The man she left me for had moved on to someone else, and she was struggling to rebuild her life. I didn't feel satisfaction or victory, just empathy. I knew that kind of pain too well. But I also knew it wasn't my job to save her anymore. That chapter was over. Months later, she sent me one final message. It said, "I hope you're happy. I know I didn't deserve your love, but I'll always be grateful for it." I replied, "I am happy. I hope someday you find peace too." And that was it, the last time we ever spoke. Looking back now, I don't regret the years we shared. They taught me what love is and what it isn't. They showed me that real strength isn't in holding on, but in knowing when to let go. If I've learned anything from all this, it's that people can betray you, break you, and leave you questioning your worth. But they can't take away your ability to rebuild. I smile now, not the forced smile I gave her that day she said she was done, but a genuine one, because she was right, in a way. Our marriage was done. But what she didn't realize was that by ending it, she gave me back something far more valuable, myself. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't anger, silence, or payback. It's peace. It's living well. It's finding joy again in your own company. And that's exactly what I did. When I look in the mirror now, I don't see the broken man who once begged for answers. I see someone who survived betrayal, learned from it, and came out stronger. Because in the end, it wasn't her goodbye that changed my life. It was my decision not to chase after it.